The first warning came not from the skies but from the silence. Cities across Earth had grown used to noise, machines, traffic, the constant hum of human life. But that morning, the silence stretched too long, heavy like the air before a storm. Soldiers on the orbital watch station saw it first, a fleet blackish shadow sliding into the solar system like blades cutting through darkness. No signal, no greeting, just the presence of something vast, ancient, and ready for war. At first, humanity thought it was another test, another challenge they could face with weapons and courage. But when the first ships entered Earth's orbit, the truth became clear. These were not enemies who came to negotiate. They were conquerors who believed humanity too fragile to resist. Cities burned in minutes. Entire armies scattered as if they were dust before a hurricane. Among the chaos, one man stood where others retreated. His name was Kale, a soldier who had survived too many battles to believe in easy surrender. He carried scars across his arms and a fire in his chest that refused to die. Where others saw invincible monsters, he saw only another enemy to defy. But even Kale had never seen anything like her. She emerged from the alien ranks like a queen stepping onto a battlefield. Taller than any human, her form was both beautiful and terrifying. Her skin gleamed like obsidian under the burning skies, ridged with venomous spines that shimmered with an unnatural glow. Her eyes burned gold, alive with something more than hatred, something cold and ancient. The soldiers whispered that she was their weapon, their executioner, built to kill with. A single touch. The moment Kale saw her, he felt the air tighten around him. She moved with elegance, each step deliberate, every motion designed to remind humanity of their weakness. The other soldiers fell back, refusing to stand near her. Even among monsters, she was feared. Yet Kale could not look away. He saw more than the threat. He saw the loneliness etched into her posture, the weight she carried as though she bore chains unseen. The battle raged. Human fighters struck back with fire and steel, but their weapons barely scratched the alien armor. The towering woman stood at the center, her spines flashing as if alive, cutting down men and machines with the sweep of her hand. But when Kyle's squad was cornered, something changed. Her eyes locked on his, golden fire against his storm-gray gaze. And in that instant, she hesitated. It was only a heartbeat, but it was enough. Kyle seized the chance, pulling his injured comrade to safety as explosions thundered around them. When he looked back, she was still watching him, her claws curled but unmoving. She could have ended him in a breath. Instead, she let him live. That night, Kale could not sleep. His squad whispered about the alien executioner, about how anyone she touched would fall lifeless, about how even their strongest warriors crumbled before her. But Kale remembered the hesitation, the flicker in her eyes that no one else seemed to notice. He remembered how her hand trembled when it should have been steady. And deep inside, he began to wonder, why would a weapon built to kill show mercy? Why would a queen of monsters spare the life of a fragile human? The war would continue, blood would stain the earth, but Kale knew something had shifted. For the first time, humanity's survival might not rest only on weapons or courage. It might rest on the fragile connection between a soldier who refused to bow and an alien executioner who dared to hesitate. And as the night stretched on, Kyle whispered a promise to himself. If the universe thought humanity fragile, if they believed no one could hold the woman with venomous spines, then he would prove them wrong. He would be the one to stand before her, even if it killed him. The war did not slow. By the second week, Earth was drowning in fire and fear. Alien ships hung over the skies like vultures waiting for the world to stop moving. Nations that once stood proud now fought only to survive. Yet in the middle of the ruins, Kale's squad pushed forward, refusing to fall silent. They fought not because they believed in victory, but because giving up was not in their blood. Kyle marched with them, but his mind was elsewhere. Every battle replayed her face in his thoughts, the towering alien woman with golden eyes. She had spared him once. It should have been nothing more than chance, a trick of the moment, but something inside him argued otherwise. He could not forget the tremor in her hand, the stillness of her stare. She was meant to be death, yet she had held back. One night, after a raid on a ruined city, Cale sat alone by the dim glow of a broken streetlight. His comrades whispered nearby, patching wounds and counting dwindling supplies. Kyle kept his eyes on the dark horizon, waiting for the sound of ships or the shimmer of alien armor. And then, without warning, she appeared. The alien warrior stood, in the half-light, her spines glinting like knives under the broken sky. She moved with quiet grace, her form towering above him, yet her steps made no sound. Kyle reached for his weapon out of instinct, but his hand stopped halfway. He knew in his heart he would not fire. They stood in silence for long seconds. Her eyes glowed, twin embers piercing the dark, locked on his face. She was close enough now that he could see the strange pattern of her skin, smooth like stone yet alive, shifting faintly as though something beneath it breathed. The air felt sharp around her, heavy with danger. "You should kill me," Kyle said finally, his voice rough. Her head tilted, the motion both human and alien, curious, yet cold. No words came from her lips. Instead, her spines shivered lightly, releasing a faint hum like the warning of a storm. Still, she did not strike. "Why?" Kyle pressed, his hand still resting near his weapon, though he had no will to use it. "Why? Hesitate? Why let me live?" Her gaze lingered. For a moment he thought she might speak, but only a whisper of sound escaped her throat, more vibration than language. Yet he felt it. Somehow he knew. It was not mercy she gave, not truly. It was something else. Before Cale could move, the sound of distant gunfire broke the moment. His squad was under attack again. The alien woman turned her head toward the noise, her spines flaring with sudden light. Cale thought she would leave, vanish into the night like a shadow. But then her golden eyes returned to him, holding him fast. And in that single look, Cale understood something dangerous. She was not his enemy, not fully. She was bound to them, forced. Perhaps, but there was a crack in her armor, a weakness hidden beneath the venom and steel. When the noise of battle grew louder, she stepped back, her tall frame dissolving into the shadows. Cale's breath came hard, his heart racing, but he did not call out. He knew she would return. Back with his squad, he said nothing of her visit. The others would not understand. They would see her only as a monster, a threat to burn. But Cale felt a different truth rising inside him. The war was more than survival now. Somewhere in the fire and ruin, a thread had tied him to the alien executioner. And though the galaxy believed no fragile human could touch her without dying, Kyle promised himself that he would find her again. He would uncover the reason behind her hesitation. Even if it dragged him into the heart of death itself, he would not stop. Days turned into weeks, and the war carved deep scars into the earth. Alien ships stalked the skies like silent predators, their shadows stretching over the ruins of cities. Humanity fought in pockets, scattered and desperate. Every victory felt borrowed, every breath stolen from an enemy too strong to defeat. Yet Cale's squad survived, moving like ghosts through the wreckage, striking where they could, running where they must. But for Cale, survival was no longer enough. His thoughts returned again and again to the towering alien woman with venomous spines. The memory of her hesitation burned in his mind, a puzzle he could not solve. Why had she spared him twice? He had faced enemies before, and they never paused. She had looked at him as though she saw something beyond the battlefield, something no one else could see. One evening, his squad camped inside the hollow skeleton of a collapsed skyscraper. The city around them lay silent, broken glass crunching under boots, wind moaning through shattered windows. Cale sat apart from the others, sharpening his blade, though his eyes were fixed on the empty horizon. "You've been distant," one of his comrades muttered, settling beside him, always staring at nothing. "What's on your mind, Cale?" Cale said nothing. He could not explain it, not without sounding mad. How could he tell them that the enemy's deadliest weapon had spared him not once but twice? They would laugh, or worse, accuse him of weakness. So he kept silent, his jaw tight, and returned to his blade. That night, the silence was broken again. She came. The alien warrior stepped out of the shadows as if she belonged to them. Her spines shimmered faintly in the moonlight, each one alive with a quiet menace. Her golden eyes caught the faint glow of fire, locking onto him as though no one else existed. Kale rose slowly, his hand resting at his side, not on his weapon. His heart pounded hard against his ribs, but he stood his ground. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered, though he knew the words were meaningless. She did not answer in any human tongue. Still, she came closer. Her towering form loomed over him, yet her steps were measured, not hostile. The air between them felt electric, heavy with a tension that was neither peace nor war. She stopped within, arms reach close enough for Kale to see the texture of her skin, to hear the faint hum that rose from the spines along her back. "What are you?" Kale asked, his voice unsteady. For a long moment there was nothing. Then she raised one hand, the claws glinting faintly, and pressed it against her chest. The motion was deliberate, almost human. Her spines flickered with light, pulsing faintly as though in rhythm with a heartbeat. Then she lowered her hand and tilted her head, watching him. Kyle understood. She was telling him something, not with words, but with the only language she had left. She was not only a weapon, she was alive. A sound broke behind him. One of his squad mates stirring awake. Kale turned sharply, but when he looked back, she was already gone, swallowed by the night. Sleep did not come to him. He lay awake, staring at the broken ceiling, his thoughts spinning. She was reaching out to him, trying to tell him something. A soldier who should have killed him without hesitation was risking her place, her command, just to stand near him. Kale clenched his fists. If there was even the smallest chance that she was more than a weapon, more than a monster, then he had to know. The galaxy feared her because they believed she was death itself. But Kale had seen the crack in her armor, the spark of something more, and he would follow it. Even if it dragged him into the jaws of war, he would not turn away. The battles grew fiercer as the aliens pressed deeper into human lands. Kale's squad moved constantly, never staying in one place long enough to be tracked. They were worn thin, faces hollow with exhaustion, but still they fought. Every strike against the enemy was a message. Humanity would not fall quietly. But Kale's fight was not only against the invaders, it was against the questions clawing inside his head. He thought of her every night, the alien woman with glowing eyes and venomous spines. Each time she appeared, she came closer, and each time she let him live. It was no accident. Something bound her to him, though he could not explain it. The turning point came in the ruins of an old factory. Kale and his squad had been ambushed, pinned down by alien troops. The air was thick with smoke, gunfire echoing off steel walls. Kale fought desperately, dragging one of his men behind cover, when a shadow moved through the haze. She was there, her tall figure cut through the smoke, spines gleaming faintly like living blades. The other aliens moved aside for her, their eyes filled with the same fear that haunted every battlefield she touched. They believed she was death-walking, and maybe she was. Kale raised his weapon, his breath sharp. But when her eyes found his, golden and steady, his hands faltered. She did not attack. Instead, with a flick of her arm, her spines slashed outward, yet not toward him. The alien soldiers around her screamed as her venom struck them, dropping them where they stood. Kale froze. She had turned her power not against him, but against her own kind. When the last soldier fell, silence spread through the factory. The smoke cleared enough for Kale to see her standing in the center, chest heaving, her spines dimming as if the act had drained her strength. She looked at him again, and this time her gaze was not cold. It was desperate. Kale stepped forward slowly, lowering his weapon. "Why help us?" he asked, voice rough with disbelief. She did not answer with words. Instead, she reached for her throat. With a clawed hand, she pulled aside part of the armor fused to her body. revealing a faintly glowing mark burned into her skin. It pulsed, like a brand, alive with alien energy. Kyle recognized it instantly. It was a control device. She was bound. Kale's chest tightened. She was not fighting because she wanted to. She was fighting because she was forced. Her hesitation, her silence, her moments of mercy, they were cracks in the chains holding her down. The golden fire in her eyes flickered, as if pleading with him to understand. Then she stepped back, the spines along her shoulders rising again. She was slipping away, retreating into the shadows where she belonged. "Wait," Kale shouted, his voice echoing through the ruins. "I'll find a way, I'll free you." For the first time her lips parted, and though no words formed, he saw it, a hint of emotion breaking through the mask. Then she turned and vanished, leaving him with his squad, who stared in stunned silence at the bodies she had left behind. None of them understood. They whispered fearfully, some calling her a traitor to her own kind, others calling Kale mad for not killing her when he had the chance. But Kale knew the truth now. She was more than their weapon. She was a prisoner, forced to be what they demanded. And Kale, fragile human or not, had made a promise. No matter what it cost, he would keep it. Whispers spread faster than fire. Soldiers who had seen the alien woman turn her power on her own kind could not keep silent. Some called it luck, others called it madness. But the story grew. The executioner with venomous spines had spared humans, and Kale had stood in her presence without fear. Kale's own squad looked at him differently now. Around campfires, their eyes lingered too long, heavy with doubt. "You've seen her too many times," one muttered. "No one survives that. Many encounters with her. Maybe she's playing with you, maybe she's waiting for the moment you slip." Kale said nothing. He could not explain what he had seen in her eyes, or the truth of the glowing brand carved into her flesh. They would never understand that she was as much a prisoner as they were. So he carried the secret alone, but his resolve grew stronger. Every patrol, every raid, he found himself searching the battlefield for her tall shadow, for the faint shimmer of golden eyes in the dark. When he fought with the thought that she might be watching. When he rested, he wondered if she was near, hidden in the ruins. It was no longer just war for him. It was a hunt, not to kill her, but to find her, to reach her before. The chains around her destroyed them both. It was during a night raid on a crashed supply ship that he found her again. The air was thick with smoke, fire lighting the broken hull. His squad fought fiercely against the alien soldiers scavenging the wreckage, but Kyle moved apart, his senses sharp, his instincts pulling him deeper into the shadows. And there she was. She stood alone beside the burning wreck, her tall form bathed in orange light, spines casting long shadows across the ground. She looked less like a warrior and more like a ghost, bound by something unseen. When her eyes found his, she did not raise her hand in threat. She only stood there, waiting. Kyle approached, his boots crunching on broken metal. His weapon hung, loose at his side. "You saved us," he said, his voice low but firm. "I saw it. I saw what you did to your own kind. You don't want this war any more than we do." Her spines flickered faintly, glowing with an unsteady light. She stepped closer, towering over him, and then raised her clawed hand again to her throat. The mark glowed brighter, pulsing as though alive. She pressed her claws into it, and for a moment her body trembled, as if in pain. Kyle understood. The brand controlled her, forcing her into battle. She could resist in moments, but never for long. "I'll find a way," he whispered, his eyes locked on hers. "I don't care how impossible it looks. I'll free you." For a heartbeat, something shifted in her gaze. It was not just desperation, it was hope, faint and fragile, but real. But the moment was shattered by a voice shouting his name. His squad had found him. Footsteps thundered closer, rifles raised. When they saw her, panic erupted. "Kale, get back," someone yelled. "It's her! Shoot!" Kale spun, his body tense, his weapon still lowered. "No," he shouted. "Don't fire." But it was too late. Gunfire cracked through the night. She moved instantly, her spines flaring wide, deflecting bullets with a shimmer of deadly light. The humans fell back, shouting, their fear louder than reason. Kyle stood between them and her, his arms spread wide. "Stop. She's not our enemy." The squad hesitated, torn between their trust in him and their terror of her. The alien warrior's golden eyes locked on Kale's once more, filled with a storm of emotion. Then, as quickly as she had appeared, she vanished into the smoke, leaving chaos behind. His squad stared at him, faces pale, hands shaking on their weapons, and in that moment Kale knew the truth. Neither side would forgive him for this. To humans he was reckless, maybe even a traitor. To the aliens he was a threat who had touched their weapon and lived. But Kale no longer cared. The bond between him and the alien executioner was real, and he would risk everything to see where it led. The whispers turned into accusations. Back at the human stronghold, Kale stood before his commander while the rest of his squad watched from the shadows. The old concrete bunker smelled of oil and smoke, filled with the constant hum of machines barely holding together. Maps lined the walls, marked with red lines that showed just how much of Earth had already been lost. "You stood between your men and that thing," the commander said, his voice sharp as steel. "Explain yourself." Kyle's jaw tightened. "She's not just a weapon, she's being controlled, I've seen it." A bitter laugh broke from one of the officers nearby. "Controlled? She slaughtered entire platoons without blinking. You think she's sparing you out of kindness?" Kale's voice rose. "I saw her turn on her own kind. I saw the brand burned into her skin. She's not free. And if she can fight against them, even for a moment, then we have a chance." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Or she's toying with you, drawing you in, breaking your will so you'll betray us." The word hung heavy in the room. Betrayal. Kale felt the eyes of his squad on him, men and women who had fought by his side for years. Now they looked at him as though they no longer knew who he was. "I fight for humanity," Kale said firmly. "Every day, every battle. That hasn't changed. But I won't ignore the truth just because it's easier to hate her." The commander studied him for a long, tense moment, then finally waved him off. "Get out of my sight, Kale, but hear me. If you put this army at risk again, you won't have to worry about the aliens killing you. We'll handle it ourselves." Kale left the bunker with his chest burning. He knew the truth now. He was alone in this. If he wanted to save her, he would have to do it without his people's support. Meanwhile, far above the Earth, the alien fleet circled in silence. Inside one of the great command ships, the leaders of the invasion sat around a chamber glowing with cold light. Their forms were tall and thin, voices layered with strange harmonies that echoed against the walls. They spoke of their weapon. "She hesitates," one of them said. "Reports show moments of delay. She did not kill the human soldier when she had the chance," another hissed in reply. "The control brand binds her, she cannot disobey." Yet the first voice lingered with doubt. The human survives again and again. Others fall, yet he remains. Perhaps the brand weakens. Perhaps the weapon remembers what it was before. Their leader, a figure cloaked in living armor, raised a clawed hand for silence. "If the weapon breaks, we will destroy it. Until then, it serves us. The human is nothing, a fragile insect. He will die soon enough." But even as the leaders dismissed the matter, Kale's name began to spread among the alien ranks, just as it had among the humans, a soldier who stood before the executioner and lived, a fragile human who dared to defy their queen of spines. And within the executioner herself, the chain pulled tighter. She sat alone in the dark of her chamber, her spines dim, the brand on, her throat glowing with cruel fire. She thought of the battlefield, of the human's eyes staring back at hers without fear. Her claws trembled as she pressed them against the brand. Pain seared through her body, but she did not stop. She could not. Because for the first time in countless battles, she wanted something more than survival. She wanted freedom. And deep inside, a fragile hope flickered. That the human who dared to stand before her might be the key. Kale could not sleep. Every night, as the army prepared for another desperate stand, he lay awake with the image of her burned into his mind. The brand on her throat, the way her golden eyes flickered with something human, something alive. The war was tearing the world apart, yet all he could think of was finding her again. The humans would never help him. His commander's warning was clear. If they even suspected he sought her out, they would execute him for treason. But Cale had already made his choice. She was more than a weapon. She deserved freedom, and he was the only one willing to give it to her. So he left under cover of night. Alone. No squad at his back, no orders to follow. Just the faint trail of rumors, the whispers of where she had last been seen. He followed the ruins of cities, the burned paths left behind by alien troops. Every step carried him deeper into enemy territory. And then, in the shadow of a broken mountain city, he found her. She stood on a ridge overlooking the ruins, her tall frame outlined by the pale glow of a broken moon. Her spines shimmered faintly in the night air, alive with quiet menace. She did not turn when he approached, though she must have heard him. It was as though she had been waiting. Cale's voice was steady, though his heart raced. "I came for you." Slowly, she turned. Her golden eyes burned like fire, but not with hate, with something deeper. Her spines rose slightly, then lowered as though uncertain. Cale took another step closer, close enough to see the faint cracks in her armor, the strain in her body. "You don't belong to them. I know it. I saw what they did to you. That brand, on your throat, it's chains I'll break." Her claws lifted slowly, hesitantly, and she touched the glowing mark. The light pulsed in answer, cruel and alive. Her hand trembled as if she wanted to tear it out, but could not. Kyle reached out without thinking. His hand brushed hers, warm flesh against cold armor. The air between them burned with danger. One touch from her could kill him, yet she did not pull away. For the first time, the alien warrior made a sound that was not the hum of her spines. A low, broken noise filled with pain and longing. She tried to speak, her lips forming shapes that did not match human words. Still, Kyle understood. She was begging, not for mercy, for freedom. "I'll find a way," Kyle whispered, gripping her hand. "I swear it." The moment was shattered by the sharp whine of engines overhead. Alien patrol ships streaked through the sky, their lights sweeping across the ruins. Her spines flared bright, warning him of danger. She pushed him back with sudden strength, forcing him into the shadows. Cale stumbled but did not resist. He watched as she stepped forward, her body tall and defiant, presenting herself to the skies, as though daring them to see her. When the lights passed, she turned her eyes back to him, fierce and commanding. Then she vanished into the night, faster than his eyes could follow. Kyle stayed where he was, his chest heaving, his hand still tingling from the touch that should have killed him. He had crossed the line now. He had not only sought her out, but touched her, bonded with her in a way no one else dared. He knew the risk. If the humans discovered this, they would brand him a traitor. If the aliens discovered it, they would unleash everything to destroy him. But Cale no longer cared. He had seen the truth in her eyes. And he would burn the world down before he let her remain a slave. Cale returned to his squad 2 days later, but nothing felt the same. Their eyes followed him with suspicion, their whispers cut through the air like knives. They asked no questions, and he gave no answers, but inside his heart burned with a new fire. He had touched her hand, seen her pain up close. The brand was real, the chains unbreakable, or so it seemed. But Cale refused to believe that. He began to search. Whenever the squad raided alien camps, Cale's eyes lingered on the machines and strange devices left behind. He stole fragments of alien tech, hiding them away, studying them by firelight when the others slept. He searched not for weapons to kill, but for a way to undo the brand that bound her. Days bled into nights. He found patterns etched into the alien metal, strange runes glowing with a rhythm that reminded him of the mark on her throat. The technology was alive, pulsing with energy like a second heart, He knew he was close, but he lacked the key, the one piece that would set her free. Meanwhile, the aliens had begun to notice. Patrols doubled. Hunters stalked the ruins, searching for the human soldier who dared to stand before their weapon and live. Rumors spread even among their own ranks that the fragile human had touched the executioner and she had not killed him. To them, it was blasphemy, a wound to their pride. And above them all, in the alien command ship, the leaders grew restless. The weapon falters, one hissed. It hesitates, it spares. The human infects it, another snarled. He must be destroyed. The decision was made. Both Kale and their prized weapon would be hunted, one to be killed, the other to be broken. But Kale sensed it already. He could feel the net closing around him. His squad's glances grew darker, their trust thinning. His commander spoke little to him, but Kale saw the truth in the man's eyes. They no longer knew if he was one of them. Still, he pressed on. One night, while his squad slept in the ruins of an old cathedral, Kale slipped away again. The moonlight cut through shattered glass windows, painting silver patterns across the floor, and there, waiting in the shadows, she stood. The alien warrior's spines glowed faintly, her golden eyes locking onto him the moment he entered. She was tense, her body coiled as though she expected an attack, yet when Kale stepped forward, her posture eased just slightly. "I've been searching," Kale said softly, his voice carrying through the hollow silence. "I know your chains can be broken. I just need more time." She tilted her head, her claws brushing against the brand at her throat. Pain flickered across her face, raw and sharp, before she lowered her hand. Her eyes glowed brighter, as though answering his words with hope. Kale reached into his jacket and pulled out one of the alien devices he had stolen. The small crystal pulsed faintly, alive with energy. "This is part of it. I think it's connected to the mark. If I can find the right way." He trailed off, staring at her. "I'll free you." She stepped closer, her tall frame towering above him. Her spines hummed faintly, but not in warning. For the first time, she lowered her head slightly, as though bowing, not to fear but to trust. Before Kale could speak again, a sudden boom shook the earth. Searchlights cut through the ruins, voices shouting in both human and alien tongues. They had been found. Kale's blood ran cold. Both sides had come hunting. The alien warrior's eyes burned into his, fierce and unyielding. She grabbed his arm with her clawed hand, pulling him toward the shadows. For the first time, she was not just sparing him, she was protecting him. And Kyle knew, as they slipped into the darkness together, that the world would never forgive them for what they were becoming. The ruins exploded with light and fire. Human soldiers stormed from one side, alien hunters from the other. Trapped between two armies, Kale felt the world tighten around him. His squad shouted his name, voices sharp with panic and rage. On the far side, alien voices echoed with fury, their weapons glowing in the night. And in the middle of it all, she stood. The executioner, the weapon, the woman bound by venomous spines. Her golden eyes burned as she pulled Kyle into the shadows with sudden strength, her claws firm but not cruel. Gunfire and plasma bolts tore through the cathedral walls. Stone crumbled, glass shattered, dust rained down like ash. Kyle's heart hammered, but he did not resist her grip. For the first time, they were not enemies dodging one another. They were fugitives, fleeing side by side. She moved with speed no human could match, weaving through rubble with grace that seemed almost unreal. Kyle stumbled after her, dragged along by her strength. Every time he faltered, she steadied him with a touch that could have killed him. But it never did. They burst into the open streets, sprinting past fallen towers and broken roads. Behind them, shouts grew louder, lights cutting through the smoke. Both sides were hunting them now. Humans calling Kyle a traitor, aliens demanding the return of their weapon. At last, they ducked into the underground tunnels of the ruined city. The air was thick with damp and dust, the walls trembling from the battle above. Here in the dark, the chase faded to a distant roar. Only their breaths filled the silence, his ragged, hers steady and deep. Kyle leaned against the wall, his chest burning, his body shaking with exhaustion. She stood before him, tall and silent, her spines glowing faintly like embers in the dark. For the first time, they were not surrounded by war. For the first time, there was only them. He raised his eyes to hers. "They'll never stop hunting us," he said softly. "Not them, not my people, not yours." She tilted her head, her eyes glowing brighter. Slowly, she stepped closer, her spines lowered, no longer sharp with warning, but soft, alive with quiet light. Kyle felt his fear fade. He reached out, his hand trembling as it brushed against her arm. Her skin was smooth and cold, ridged with faint lines that pulsed beneath his touch. He expected pain, expected venom, but instead, he felt warmth. Real warmth, alive and steady. "You're not a weapon," he whispered. "Not to me." Her golden eyes softened. She raised her hand, clawed fingers brushing against his chest. For a heartbeat, Cal thought she would drive them through him. Instead, she pressed her palm gently over his heart. Her spines pulsed once, faint and glowing in rhythm with the beat beneath her hand. The moment stretched, fragile and dangerous. Two worlds, two enemies, standing in the dark, bound by something stronger than fear. But then the ground shook, and dust rained down from the tunnel ceiling. The hunt was closing in again. Both armies had tracked them here. Cale tightened his grip on her hand. "If they want us dead," he said, his voice firm, "then we'll face them together." Her eyes blazed at his words, fierce and alive. For the first time, she nodded. Slow, deliberate, like a vow. In the distance, the sound of boots and engines echoed closer. Both armies were coming. And as Kyle and the alien warrior stood side by side in the shadows, one truth burned brighter than the fear. They were no longer enemies. They were something far more dangerous. The tunnel shook with thunder as both armies closed in. The air grew thick with dust, the sound of boots and claws echoing through the dark. Cale stood with his back against the wall, his rifle clutched tight, but his eyes never left her. The alien warrior's spines glowed faintly, her golden eyes, burning with a fire that was no longer just obedience. She touched the brand at her throat, the cruel mark that bound her. The glow pulsed violently, as though the aliens above were pulling the chains tighter, forcing her to obey. Her body trembled, claws flexing, torn between freedom and command. Kyle stepped forward, closing the distance. "Fight it," he urged, his voice rough but steady. "You're not their weapon, you're more than that, you've already proven it." Her spines flared, sparks of venom crackling through the air. She fell to her knees, claws digging into the ground, a low sound tearing from her throat. Cale dropped beside her, ignoring the heat that burned against his skin. He pulled the crystal device from his jacket, the fragment he had stolen from alien machines, and pressed it against the brand. The mark screamed with light. Her body jerked, spines lashing wildly, the venom singing through the air. Kyle gritted his teeth, pressing harder. "You're free," he whispered. "No one owns you. Not them, not anyone. You're free." For a moment, he thought he had killed her. Her body arched, her eyes blazing brighter than ever, the spines shaking with violent energy. And then, silence. The light in the brand shattered, fading into nothing. The chains were broken. She collapsed forward, her body trembling, spines dim and quiet. Kyle caught her, holding her despite the danger, his arms tight around her tall frame. For the first time, she did not resist. For the first time, her hand rested gently against his back, not as a weapon, but as a choice. But the moment of peace did not last. The tunnels erupted with fire as human soldiers poured in from one side, alien hunters from the other. Shouts filled the air, weapons raised, both armies aiming at the same target. Them. Cale stood, still holding her close. "We end it here," he said, his voice steady. Her eyes opened, golden fire blazing. She rose beside him, taller than any human, her spines flaring with new strength, not forced, but chosen. No longer chains, but wings. The battle was chaos. Bullets and plasma bolts tore through the tunnels. Kyle fought like a man with nothing left to lose, his rifle spitting fire, his movements sharp and fearless. And beside him she moved like a storm unleashed. Her spines cut through the air, venom striking enemies with deadly precision. For the first time her power was hers alone, not the command of her masters. Human and alien alike fell back, terrified. They had expected a weapon bound by chains, not a warrior free by choice. And they had never imagined that a fragile human and a monster of spines could fight as one. The battle ended not with victory, but with silence. The survivors fled, leaving the tunnels broken and burning. Kyle stood in the wreckage, his chest heaving, his body bruised but alive. Beside him she stood tall, her golden eyes fixed on him, her spines dimming into calm light. For a long moment, they said nothing. The world around them was still at war. But here, in the ruins, something had changed. Kyle lowered his weapon. "What now?" he asked softly. She stepped closer, her hand brushing against his, careful, deliberate. Her eyes glowed not with command, but with freedom. And in that silence, Kyle understood. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The galaxy had called him fragile. They had called her a monster. But now, standing side by side, they were something else entirely, and nothing in the stars would ever forget it.